Today I'm going to break down a masterclass style interview that we did for Happier, which is one of the most popular mindfulness apps in the world. Literally, the client said we want it to look like the masterclass. It's a very tall order, a little intimidating, I'm not going to lie. You don't get clients this big all the time, and you'll see how we met the mark and the final product.
We don't have to be the kind of victim or under the spell of even a strong emotion like this one, like anger, hatred, etc. It's possible to not be totally fused with it. It's possible to be aware of this, to not be completely fooled. It's possible to feel it.
So let's just look at why it looks good, and then we'll look at how. Okay, that's kind of the idea here. First and foremost, the client did tell us that the majority, 99% of people, would be watching the video in 4:5 aspect ratio. So just keep that in mind as we're looking through here. Now, I'd say the first thing I want to bring up here is the client was in the US, and the second they beamed in, when I beamed the video feed to them and they saw it, the second they saw it, they said, "Ooh, that looks good." Hearing that from them as a gut reaction was great. So I was really happy with that. And so let's look at why it looks good here. There's a few things. Let's start with the key light. So nice, beautiful light on the face. You'll notice that the face is basically the brightest. So it's a little bit brighter than the background. And then you'll notice how this part here, the dark side of his face, is a little bit darker than the background. So the background's kind of in the middle. I call that the 3-5-7 rule. So that's 3, 5, 7. Meaning if 1 is black, 10 is pure white. We want the skin of the face to be a little bit darker and brighter than the background on average. And that makes the face pop. It makes the face have more contrast, and the viewer is more drawn to it. And that's what you want. Okay. Then you have the checkerboard pattern in the background. So light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, dark. So if you look at that, that's about 12 checkerboards. To me, this is 10 out of 10 in terms of the background. Okay, that's what we want. The more we can get the salt and pepper in the background, the better. There's also pools of light. 1, you have 2, 3, 4, and then there's a pool here from a spotlight that I'm shining on it. So that's 5. I guess you can call this one, but this is kind of ugly. It's actually just spill from the key light. But just lots of pools of interest in the background where it's not all just one level of exposure, right? We even have this beautiful pool of light on the barn in the background where look at the difference of light, right? There to up there and down there. And that's just visual interest. The more pools of light you can get, the better. Of course, the camera, we used a Red Komodo 6K and Zeiss CP2 lenses. That really helps. The Zeiss CP2 lens in particular, it gets this beautiful creamy bokeh in the background. The loop light, so you can see the light on the face. That the loop means that the light on the dark side of the face, it reaches around just a bit. This is for a meditation app, so we want it to be happy and high key feeling. You can see the highlights, these little white dots in the eyes, which are also beautiful. So all these things work for us here. This is why, again, the client at a gut level, the second they saw this, they were like, "Ooh, that looks good." They didn't know why. Even I didn't necessarily know all the reasons why, but this, looking at it now, this is clearly the reasons why. Okay. Let's look at how now. Okay. And the practical lights is actually what I like to look at first. So if we go to the BTS here, we have an MC Pro, a Edison bulb on a dimmer. The dimmer has it down to about 25%. And then there's a spotlight right here on this C-stand that is shining and hitting the wall right here. And that's what gives us all these pools of light. So if you look here again, if you look at the difference of there to there in terms of exposure, right? And so that all comes from the practicals. The spotlight is not a practical. This is, right? And this is basically mimicking what a practical would do. And it's just giving us interest, right? But it's light sources in the background that are embedded in the background. The Key light, as I talked about here, is a 600X going through a light dome 3 with a thicker diffusion and a grid. Uh, I can't remember the strength that it was at, but it's pretty hot. I hit them pretty hard because I wanted to compete against this window back here. Um, and that really helps. The backlight is a 2-foot Amaran tube with a grid. Super important to have a grid, otherwise you get spill all over the background. Redundant boom mics, that's a Sennheiser MKE, I think it's 300 or 600, and then there's a Zoom M3. What I do is I do not do lav mics, I just completely ignore them like the plague. I avoid them like the plague, sorry. What I do is I run double booms so that I can focus on the camera, and I know that even if one microphone fails, like we're gonna have good audio because they're both super, super good quality. Okay. And then of course makeup. Can't forget the makeup. Everybody, men, women who have heavy makeup in the morning, sometimes by the afternoon they're really shiny, and you have to be really disciplined with doing makeup because that helps with your lighting, right? I would say, like, if we actually look at now, the final part of this video is the bad parts, or what would I do differently, or what, looking at it now, what do I think I could have done better? The key light is a little bit hot on the head. You can actually see here easier, there's a hot spot right on his forehead. This should be going through a large 4x or 6x diffusion, which makes the light much flatter, much more flattering and less likely to have a hot spot. Okay. Problem here, so you can see here the hot spot, very, very subtle, totally within a acceptable range, in my opinion. The thing with this was space. It's just this is a 12-foot wide house. Like, it was one of the most narrow homes I'd ever been in my whole life. And so we had very little room to do anything. And I just said, okay, you know what? Let's just go with the light dome. The downside is the light dome, the source, the size of the source is only 3x3. And the smaller the size of your source and the more powerful of that source, what you begin to run into is the potential for hotspots. That's why I love to do at least double diffusion through a 4x4 frame, like right in front. Just there was no room here, no room to do it. Okay. And then the other, quote, bad thing I wish, we talked about, that was the side here. This is a pretty ugly part of the house. I made a judgment call when I got here that, to shoot into the corner of the room, to get the rule of thirds, and most importantly, because this was the frame that mattered most to the client, I told the client that, listen, I made a very high risk judgment call here, but this, I believe, is the best background that you can extract from this house, especially for a vertical shot. And at the end of the day, they totally agreed. Okay. Last thing for me, and this is just a gear thing, is I do want to get more light pucks, because they could, if I had 3 more, I would have put them up there. I would have maybe put some in here. I'm not sure, maybe over here. But that's what they do, is they create these pools of light in the background that just make your image more interesting with a variation of luminance amongst the objects in the background. So thanks so much for watching. I'll see you on the next one.